And thanks for staying with us on Morning Live. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa will today continue with his testimony at the state capture inquiry. On day one, he admitted that members of the ANC had been involved in state capture and in corruption. Let's cross now to SABC News' political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, for more. And, of course, getting reaction as well from yesterday. Mzwandile, I believe you have Mmusi Maimane with you. Please, if you can, just squeeze in. I'd love to hear what he thinks about the latest developments in the Democratic Alliance as well. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sakina. In fact, it's been very interesting. I mean, from yesterday, we've been having a number of other political party leaders who have been coming here to hear what the president is saying. And of course, today we have the leader of one SA. I mean, he prefers to be called the chief volunteer, Mmusi Maimane, to give us his views exactly as he watches the commission speak to the president. Mr. Maimane, you are very keen on the proceedings here. So what's your take?
No, absolutely. And I think all of us as South Africans have every right to feel disappointed with the president's testimony from yesterday. We must be angered because it felt like the president said some things went wrong, we must just forget and move on. Didn't come with concrete plans as to how accountability must be effected. I don't think he did enough to try and tell us that the future is going to look like this, and this is how we prevent state capture from ever happening again. It is the ANC's policy to capture the state. They will do it again, and another faction will continue that work.
So what do you want to hear the president say? I mean, you heard him the first day. It is his second day. But of course, we know he's not done yet. On ANC matters, what specifically are the issues you are expecting from him?
Well, I think more than anything, I'd like to hear some pronouncement on a budget that allows for better prosecution that is dealt with by the SIU and the Hawks, because we need to capacitate that work. These were criminal acts. They mustn't be, when we use state capture, sometimes it makes it sound, it's criminal acts. Secondly, from a policy point of view, I think deployment of cadres is being what has spread the cancer throughout, because it suffers from two things. One, you've deployed people who have literally got no skills in certain areas, which has consequences in service delivery. They may not loot the money, but you can't send someone who knows nothing about water engineering. It must be suspended. Secondly, I think the second question is that it suffers from factionalism. A faction gets hold of Transnet, and then the next thing, when another tender is decided, another faction decides to do so. So I'd like to hear that you can only be allowed to appoint people in your private office as a political principle. As for the rest, an open, transparent, public process that is not party aligned must be taken.
So are you opposed to cadre deployment in principle, or you want people, even if they are appointed by the party, who are competent? Because if your party wins elections, I'm sure you're not going to take someone who doesn't share your vision. So how are you going to deal with that?
But this is the very important thing about capacitating the bureaucracy. The people that are so-called sent to position are the elected officials. They must go drive the vision. But as far as the bureaucracy is concerned, Director General, Chief Directors, those people must be public people who know that they are sent there to work for the citizens. So that irrespective of which government comes into play, they are always faithful to citizens. Lastly, I think it's important that we get back to the question of direct democracy. Because if we don't directly elect political principles, they themselves will always go back and say, I protect the party before I protect the people.
We've just spoken about the governing party now. And of course, there's a party called the opposition party, official opposition. You know better than I do. You've just been there at some point. You are seeing what's happening in the Democratic Alliance. Yesterday, one of the provincial leaders in Western Cape left. One of the leaders also left. What are you making of what is happening in your former party?
Like all of us, we must lament what's going on, because ultimately the pain that's going on says South Africans are robbed of any alternative. That's why when I left there, I wanted to be clear that we must build a non-racial alternative that sits at the center of politics. What is happening now is that actually parties are sitting down and saying, can we just focus on a particular race and rather narrow itself. And that's what I think is going on there, is that the vision has stopped being a vision for all South Africans and a vision for a few. Therefore, there are some people who are there who are going to be uncomfortable progressively, because this is not an organization that simply seeks the ambition that we held to say, let's go out, let's govern in more places, let us challenge the ANC, let us remove them. And what's happening now is an organization that is shrinking back and getting rid of some people.
Do you regret having been a member of the DA, especially after hearing someone like Tony Leon saying, well, you are an experiment gone wrong?
No, look, we served the vision. We wanted to transform the organization, and we were winning. South Africa was open to the Democratic Alliance. So now, when people come and offend us and insult us post facto, is an indicator of the war we had to fight. But at the end of the day, when it's said and done, it has given us an ability to begin. Today we have a state capture because when we were there, I fought for the Bosasa issues. I fought for that. So it gave us an opportunity for accountability. And now sitting here today, we have to build something fresh to challenge where it's going.
At what point did you realize that the DA was not what you had thought it was?
You know, I think to me, the issue became more clear when people started to oppose us on key issues that I thought were common cause. I remember when we fought the diversity clause, for example, when we wanted to make South Africa a diverse place, that suddenly people were opposing that. I started to think, why would you oppose something that's in the constitution of South Africa, but also oppose something that is beneficial to all South Africans? I realized there was a problem. And then ultimately, as you see the utterances that are coming up now with some of the leaders who are back, who are leading the organization, you realize that they no longer want a South Africa for all. They want a South Africa for the few. And more will keep coming out as we expose some of these things.
Have you spoken to John Steenhuisen lately?
Well, like any other South African, it's a tough moment for him. I know it's a big decision that he's taken, so I sent him a message. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he has to live by the decisions he's taken. He served the organization. I think all of us must reflect on this moment, because it's going to happen more and more, especially in the opposition. We've got to, as I urgently say, that look at what alternative we build, a credible one for all South Africans.
Zille, have you spoken to him lately?
I have nothing to say to Helen Zille or Tony Leon, especially in the light of the remarks they made about myself. It's an indicator of the fact that we are worlds apart from each other. They want one South Africa, a Tapitla South Africa. I want a South Africa that works for all citizens. So clearly we are not sharing a common vision. I've got to chart our way forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maimane.
Much appreciated.
Well, that was the leader of the 1SA, Mmusi Maimane. He prefers to be called the chief volunteer. And then, of course, as the local government elections are coming, so we can expect to see more of him campaigning, because he really wants direct representation in all spheres of government. Sakina and Leanne?
Well, thank you so much, Mzwandile Mbeje there. And very interesting comments there from Mmusi Maimane, former leader of the Democratic Alliance, now the chief volunteer of One South Africa. Interesting. And as Mzwandile says, as we approach elections, it's going to be all the rage.
Absolutely, it's going to get more and more interesting. All right, we unfortunately do have to leave it here this morning, but in the next hour on the program, we'll of course continue to get some reaction to yesterday, the first appearance of President Cyril Ramaphosa at the State Capture Commission, and we'll see who else Mzwai can get hold of. But of course, we've got so many tweets that we've been receiving from you as to how you thought, but we're going to unfortunately have to park that until the next hour, because we have to say goodbye to our SABC 2 viewers.
Certainly will make time for them in the next hour, because not least is, of course, your view and your reaction to what's going on in South Africa. So to our SABC 2 viewers, we loathe to do it, but we have to.